hearty welcome to the Coach Paul Show.
No, thank you, Coach Paul. I appreciate the opportunity.
Absolutely. This is truly an honor. And thanks for spending some time with me and the listeners today. So I hear that you're still living in McFarland. I would love to start there. The ending credits to the movie say that you're working as a correctional officer back in 2015. Is that what you're still doing today?
No, I actually retired about 3 years ago from the state of California. So I draw a pension. And I left with the idea that if I left now at a young age, it was really 50 is really young still. I could start my second career. And I didn't think of it was good as a career, just kind of like a side job where if I could at least travel maybe 4 times a year quarterly,
Mhm.
because I was already traveling to speak even during my career, but I was burning vacation time, holiday time to go do it. And my partners at work, I told them, hey, I'm not going to be here Monday and Tuesday. I'm going to be in this state speaking, and they'd like, they're still talking about that movie, Thomas. And yeah, they are, and they invite me to come speak, and as long as they keep inviting me, I'll keep going.
Yeah.
And but I've been booked ever since, every month. Sometimes it's once a month, sometimes it's 4 times a month, every week. And my wife would prefer it to be once a month. But sometimes they, especially during cross country season to kick off the season,
Yeah.
I'll kick off cross country seasons for a team. They'll have a lock in or they'll show the movie.
Oh, yeah.
But really, right now is probably the most popular time because everybody's finishing up their season, either going to every state, going to league or their conference or their regional, their section, or finish up their state championships.
Yeah. So you're a hot ticket item right now. Wow.
Yeah, so I get asked all the time. Yeah, and I mean, it's kind of like a sense of responsibility to if there's requests, I don't mind do it. If it's doable, I'll do it.
That's fantastic. Yeah, you're very generous with that. Thank you. I see you all over the place traveling. And I know that you have recently run and not too long ago you ran the New York City Marathon in 2021, but have you done any races since then?
I have not. That was actually no, I take that back. I ran my daughter turned 21 last March, and so I did the San Diego half marathon.
Oh,
But
fantastic.
she ended up getting shin splints, so she
Oh,
ended up doing the 5K with my wife. And
okay.
so I ended up doing the half marathon with Danny Diaz's
Oh,
daughter,
yeah.
Ali Diaz, which is my daughter Brianna's best friend.
Oh, that's
And
amazing.
so they ran cross country in high school together. And
Okay.
so they were down there for my daughter's birthday in San Diego. So we went down there. So well, she didn't run with me. She left me. She smoked me. But it was, but even I was sharing with Danny that, hey, you know what? I it, San Diego course is kind of hilly because it runs along the the waterfront, but and then you
Mhm.
have to go up. And I found myself asking me for strength, Danny Diaz's strength while I was running up the hill.
You're saying in your mind, Danny.
Right, right.
Wow, that's pretty good. Now, when you were like training for these things, the half marathon that you just mentioned and the New York City, like the remotivation to get back out there, was that something that you had to really work for? Or was it just like kind of coming back, the joy returning, like the miles are just old friends?
The miles are old friends, and they're not my friends when I'm out there, though.
I
I
get
still
it.
hurt, and I really just enjoyed myself. Had ran one other marathon before I did New York. I'd ran Cal International when I was 31. I had to run 3:05 to get a Boston qualifier when I was 31. I
Yeah.
ended up running 2:58. I was on pace
Wow.
for 2:36, but I just crashed and burned really bad
Yeah.
and ended up running 2:58. But I was still 5, 6, 7 minutes underneath the qualifying time. But when I finished Cal International, I told myself I'd never do one again.
I
and
get
and
it.
so I never revisited one again until somebody encouraged me to run New York to raise money for MS, and
Mm.
I started with the goal of raising 3,000, and I matched. I donated 1,500, so I matched everybody else's 1,500, so I had 3,000.
Wow.
Um, and then before I left, or before after I ran it, my warden at the last prison that I worked at reached out to me. They wanted to match that 3,000, and they donated another 3,000. So that
Oh
was
my
pretty cool.
gosh. Wow, that's amazing. So that was New York City was kind of a your last big race that you've done. And
Right.
you mentioned your daughter, but I believe you have a son who ran for McFarland as well. That must have been amazing to watch your kids go through the same program that kind of defined your formative years. Did you ever serve as like a coach for them or for the team?
Well, I was a girls coach at the high school level. I was the assistant for 4 years, and then I was actually the head coach. Um, for 4 years till 2021 was my last year
Okay.
coaching right after COVID. Because even during the season, I was being asked to speak, and I was even traveling during the season. I didn't think it was fair to the kids, so I thought it was a good
Mm.
time to step away. And before that, I coached at the middle school for a few years, and before that, I ran the McFarland track club that I actually ran for in middle school for Mr. White.
Oh,
So,
wow.
what I share with the kids when I go speak is I know the movie depicts that Mr. White showed up and um, didn't know anything about cross country, but he actually started coaching in 1980. So 7 years later, so I knew of the program even before. I didn't know anything about running, but I
Mhm.
knew of Mr. White coaching in high school, and he recruited us out of junior high, or yeah, junior high. So I
Okay.
started running in junior high for Mr. White after my seventh grade year. Ran for the McFarland track club that I eventually coached. And so I tell kids, what they show in the movie is Hollywood guys, because to
Yeah.
win a state championship and in any state, it's I mean, that's Hollywood to just show up and get a few novice runners and win a state championship in any
Yeah.
state. So I tell kids in life, you got to set goals, and to achieve something like you have to set goals. And sometimes setting goals, not just in sports but in life, sometimes there's setbacks. And when I speak, I
Exactly.
share some of my setbacks I've had.
Yeah, we're going to get into that just a little bit later, but that's good. It sounds like you have a little bit of that middle school foundation, and Coach White was not just a disgraced football coach that threw a shoe at somebody. Yeah, that's all Hollywood. So,
Yeah, what's Hollywood is he'll share that. No, that I would have never thrown a shoe at somebody, and had he thrown the shoe, he wouldn't have missed because he was a pitcher in college.
oh,
He was a
wow.
pitcher in college. He said I wouldn't have missed.
Yeah, that's funny. Wow. So I think as a cross country coach myself, and you are, at its core, it's just boys and girls running through fields and up and down hills, racing a clock. But as people who've been around the sport for a while, we know it's so much more than that. So what do you
Right.
think it is about the sport that gives it such like that family type feel, and it kind of parallels as a metaphor with life sometimes too?
Well, especially in the community that we're from, that we're still a part of,
Mhm.
a lot of these kids don't have a lot of opportunities, and so and when I talk about opportunities, there are a lot of opportunities most people take for granted. Um, Being able to take a trip somewhere out of your community besides to go work,
Yeah.
uh, taking a trip to getting on a bus, going and staying at a hotel at an overnight trip. That was amazing things for us. Going to a restaurant where there was, I still haven't figured out, when there's two spoons and two forks. Uh,
Yeah.
to go to the movie theater for the first time, to go miniature golfing, to go bowling. So a lot of those firsts came
Hmm.
because I ran cross country for Mr. White. To get on
Hmm.
the plane for a first time happened to me when I was a sophomore in high school. Mr. White, um, um, he had taken a young man by the name of Jesse Cerna to Taiwan
Hmm.
before I got to high school through the International Sports Exchange, and he just went as a really just a chaperone when he went. And then when David Diaz and I were in high school, we were sophomores. Uh, he was tasked for the International Sports Exchange to recruit a team, about 30 kids, and he recruited kids from Colorado, California, and Arizona. And it was
Hmm.
about 30 of us, and we went to Taiwan to compete, and
Oh my
that was
gosh.
amazing.
Wow. Was that, I'm assuming that was the first time out of the country for you.
Well, I guess my dad, mom, I don't remember that young age of
Okay.
going to Mexico. I don't remember, but yeah,
Hmm.
but if we went there, it was when I was a toddler, and
Okay.
I don't remember going.
Yeah.
But my parents, when they were alive, they would tell me that we did. I don't remember.
Okay.
But yeah, to be out of the country for the first to go to yeah, get on the plane, that was pretty cool.
Incredible opportunity. Yeah, that's amazing. I know in the intro of the movie, you're kind of depicted in the film as this like mean, tough kid that's brought up in a like a bit of an abusive home. Had you not found running, or had running not found you with the help of Coach White, do you think that your life could have been potentially like down a radically different path coming out of high school?
Oh, definitely. I come from a broken home. My parents divorced. My mom suffered years of domestic violence when my dad was in the
Mm.
home. And when they divorced, I mean, the rules, because my dad was a disciplinarian, they were out the door. My mom was a sweetheart. So, we broke rules. We broke curfew times, and, my brothers and sisters, they're all in a good place now. But it
Mhm.
took them a long time to even just get their GEDs, as
Mm.
adults. And me, did I go down that path? I did, but you know what? Who corrected me was always Mr. White. Did I disappoint Mr. White? I did. I disappointed my mom. But you know what? Everything's correctable. There's always opportunities to make things to to make things better out of the
Yeah.
choices you make. And I share when I speak that I retired wearing the uniform and the badge, working the prison system for the California Department of Corrections.
Mhm.
And I sure had somebody not intervene in my life through sport and education, I likelihood would have been an inmate
Wow.
instead of wearing the uniform and the badge.
Wow. Could have been the other, yeah, the other side of the,
Right.
that's amazing. So yeah, what an opportunity that he gave you and he recognized that talent in you. So that's unbelievable bond and yeah, what running has given to you. Thanks for sharing that. So I know even though McFarland, it came out the movie in 2015, I hear that the background work and the research for the film started like way back in '03. When was it that you first heard that your story was going to get played out in a Disney movie? What were some of your first reactions to that?
Just thinking back, late 1998, 99, 2000, Mr. White had one of the best teams, not just in California, but the nation.
Oh, wow.
I was just looking at a picture of the team. I'm in the picture because I was a volunteer coach. Johnny Samaniego and I went to the Great American Cross Country Invitational with Mr. White as volunteer coaches. And they won I don't know, there's two different divisions. They won the Invitational division, I believe.
Okay.
They were ranked as highest fourth in the nation that year.
Wow.
Um, but we were a part of that. And so there was an LA Times article written right before that team, and we were included because we were young in our careers. This is like 11 years after we won state in 87.
Hmm.
And we were a part of this LA Times article. And these boys were struggling with the same challenges we were. Um,
Mm.
some of these kids struggled in schools just like I did, and they were getting ready to give up. And we try to encourage them, keep running, stay in school. It'll open the doors for you someday. And if you don't go to college, maybe you go to the military. Because I served in the United States Coast Guard as well. And we've had other athletes, maybe college wasn't for them, so they enlisted just like Jose Cardenas, even after college. He
Hmm.
did write for the LA Times for a bit, but then he ended up finding his career that he's still in now in the United States Army, and he's
Wow.
in Virginia.
Okay. Wow. So going back to what you were saying, like Coach White was so, I mean, a critical piece in your life, just saw the potential in you. And even though you let him down at times, you guys have this like back and forth relationship during your rocky times. But how have you as a coach, like switching to Coach Valles, like how have you had to like use what Coach White instilled in you with the kids that you coach?
Well, I started coaching because I wanted to coach my own kids. I wanted to surround my kids with positive kids.
Mm.
And we have, but within those kids, there's those kids that struggle,
Hmm.
and maybe to be corrected a few times, and because if not, they're going to end up in the same mishap that some of other kids that maybe don't find a sport. When I go try to find opportunities to go speak at schools.
Hmm.
Um, Sometimes the administrators, well, our cross country team is really not that good, or it's not that big, or they'll maybe just have me speak to the athletes. And my goal is never just to speak to the athletes, because the athletes, they already have somebody that they probably look up to. It's the kids that don't have that thing to do after school,
Mm.
that's going to give them some directions. Kids that are making poor decisions, maybe
Hmm.
they're vaping, they're smoking, making
Yeah,
drinking, and so those are things that are very common. They're common in McFarland still today. And
sure.
I grew up watching that in our school in McFarland. It still exists today, but we need to find something positive to get these kids to deter from that and make good choices in life.
Yeah.
Um, and so I've had police officers drop off kids at my practice before.
Oh my
Said,
gosh.
hey, Thomas, we know you work in the prison system, and these kids just got picked up for such and such, and you know what? Let's to encourage them to run, because if not, you're going to see them locked up someday. And yeah, look, well, and that's we're trying to avoid that. We're trying to keep these kids out of the system.
Exactly. Wow. Yeah, because you speak at so many schools, what would be one of your main messages that you try to get across? Maybe not to the runners, but to these, underserved or marginalized or kids that don't have a program. Like, what's your main message to them?
You know what? That we all have that a Jim White in our lives.
Mm.
Um, it might not be your coach, it should be your parents, but a lot of times some of these kids, things aren't right at home. Like for me, things weren't always right at my home. So I had to find that person. And
Yeah.
even every adult, like, I tell the kids, all these teachers that don't have a seat, they're standing up, lining up the walls here because they're giving their seat so you can sit down. Says these are your Jim Whites here, and they're either your
Yeah.
teachers, your counselor, it could be a janitor, it could
Yeah.
be the campus resource officer. Um, it could be somebody in the community. You
Mm.
might not. appreciate it now, but somewhere down the line, even these teachers have that person in their lives, and they're going to want to thank them someday. Hopefully, you do the same thing. Maybe there's one little phrase, some word that to give you some encouragement. And I tell I also talk to staff that you don't know what impact you're going to have on these kids, because a good morning and hope you enjoy your breakfast or your lunch today. That's probably the most positive thing some of these kids are going to hear all day.
Yeah,
So let's keep it positive, make it sure that these kids realize that their lives matter, that they're
absolutely.
just not just a number.
What a great message. And it doesn't matter who it is. I love that part of it. Just anyone can make an impact in somebody else's life. So love that message. So when you were sitting there at the premiere of the movie that you knew you had a pivotal role in living out, what happened, what were some of the emotions or things you were thinking about in that surreal moment, seeing the movie finally happen? I know it just got kicked down the road a few times, but
It was really exciting, going to walk the red carpet, the Hollywood premiere with, all these cool actors, Kevin Costner,
yeah.
Valente Rodriguez, who plays my high school principal. I just
Okay.
spoke in his hometown in Elsa, Texas, and they have
Oh,
a
wow.
water tower. It says home of uh, Vicente Rodriguez, who's Ernie from the George Lopez show. And
Okay.
so, and so I spoke at a school in Elsa,
Uh-huh.
and he had just spoke there a few months ago. So that was pretty cool. Um,
Wow. That's pretty
and
good.
so And so that was kind of like maybe a highlight for my kids, because it was pretty cool, because social media was really big at the time.
Yeah.
All I don't know, these Vine men or whatever, I don't even know what that is, but
Oh,
but
yeah.
my kid they were at the premiere, and my kids sat by them. They thought they was pretty cool. They thought they were pretty cool themselves, my kids.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of like a highlight. And because because I probably will never get invited to another red carpet ever again. It's
Right.
once in a lifetime experience.
Sure.
So actually, that's actually the second time I watched it. Um,
Oh, okay.
the first time I watched it was it was a sneak preview. Uh,
Okay.
Disney Disney sent a charter bus to McFarland and picked up my teammates and our spouses, Mr. and Mrs. White, and we
Oh,
took this 2 hour trek over through 99 to I-5 to over the Grapevine
yep.
to Burbank, where Disney Studios is located,
Mhm.
and we watched it for the first time. And even though they did interview us for the script, most of the story was shared by Mr. White, and they did ask me a few questions, and most of the things I agreed on everything that they shared, but they weren't transparent of everything they were going to share. So I didn't realize they were going to show my mom and dad in this
Oh,
movie.
wow.
I didn't realize they were going to show a little bit of domestic violence. I didn't realize they were going to
Yeah.
show my dad drinking. And so, I'll be
Yeah.
honest, I was upset that they shared that.
Sure.
Um,
Rightfully so.
the bridge scene, I
Yes.
kind of
That's powerful.
I had an indication that somebody told me that they were gonna do a bridge scene in the movie,
Hmm.
and I was like, "Are you kidding me?" Right? And it was David Diaz that told me. I think there's a bridge
Oh,
scene in there, and I go, "Are you serious?" Says, "Yeah," because I've seen the script. And then a few weeks later, because when they were filming, they filmed in McFarland 2 weeks altogether. But he said he saw the
okay.
script again, and they had blacked it out. And so, hey, Thomas, there's no more bridge scene. Because that's what he called it, a bridge scene.
Yeah.
And I go,
You knew.
okay, they blacked it out. Okay, they wrote it out. They're not going to show anything.
Yeah.
But it just caught me totally off guard when they showed
Wow.
the bridge scene in the movie, and I was upset that they shared that, because I denied that ever happened
Oh,
for
wow.
years. It originally came out in that LA Times article. Mr.
Okay.
White shared it. I wasn't upset at Mr. White. I was upset that the LA Times article ran it, and
Mhm.
it was just something that I had never talked about, wasn't willing to talk about.
Yeah.
In fact, and there's a I can't think. It's Mr. Smith. He writes for Sports Illustrated. In fact, I just signed a copy of the Sports Illustrated magazine.
Hmm.
I'm not in the Sports Illustrated article. Um, they did interview me for it here in McFarland at
Okay.
a local Subway, and I was trying to dance around the questions because he was asking me stuff about the bridge.
Oh, yeah.
Uh, and when before they printed it, or right before they went to print, somebody from their Sports Illustrated legal team called me and let me know that they were with Sports Illustrated's legal team, and that Mr. Smith, um, his story is going to read this about you. And he talked about the bridge scene, and they
Hmm.
asked me if I was okay and if it was true. And I said, no, it's not true. And it's I'm not good with it. And so they totally wrote me out of the Sports Illustrated
Oh,
article.
wow.
And it's something I regret now,
Mm.
because I think maybe it would have helped me, because Disney sharing what they shared about, with especially the bridge scene and my
Mhm.
family, that's helped heal me, because it's helped me be honest with myself, be honest with people. Because even when the movie came out, when they would ask me about stuff about that, I lied. I said, no, that's not true. It's all Hollywood.
Yeah.
But I just wasn't being honest. I couldn't talk about that. But what changed in my life is Johnny Samaniego
Mhm.
is a PE teacher at McFarland Middle School. So he took over Mr. White's job 21 years ago when he retired.
Okay.
And one of his colleagues showed the movie, and they asked him to come and share. And they told him, hey, invite Thomas to come in and talk to these kids. And so Johnny asked me, and these guys are all educators, they're teachers, most of my teammates, and they were out doing it. And I would refuse. I said, no, it's, that's not what I do, Johnny. And well, he said, go in there and talk about how we set goals to win state. And I go, I can't do that. And he says,
Sure.
show up in your uniform with your badge, and talk about your career, and talk about how you had to go to community college because you couldn't get into a 4-year school. And okay, I'll talk about that. So I did. That's what I talked about. But when they opened up the Q&A, the
Mhm.
specific questions they asked me right off the bat is if my dad drank a lot, if my parents um, fought a lot. And I kind of danced my way around those questions. I didn't say my dad was an alcoholic. I didn't
Mhm.
say I grew up in a home of domestic violence. I just agreed, and moved on to the next question. Now, when they asked me about the bridge scene, they asked me if the bridge scene was true. I just said, no, that's Hollywood, guys. That's sensationalism to
Mhm.
sell a movie. And but I wasn't honest.
Yeah.
I wasn't ready to talk about. But what changed that day with these 20 kids in one classroom is all these kids got up, they shook my hand and said, "Thank you for being here, Mr. Vyas." And most of them, they all went out their day once they went out the door. But I
Mhm.
had one young boy stay back, and 13 years old, and comes up to me, say, "Hey, Mr. Vyas, it's good to meet you. I've seen the movie, but it's your character who I can relate to, because your character in the movie is what I'm going through today." And
Wow.
he's the first student has ever told me that, and he has not been the last. Not that the very next time I went out and shared everything, it took me a few times to totally open up. And I can
Mhm.
honestly say I'm totally open with everything now. And I
Mhm.
share everything, the emotions I was when that bridge, and what got me to that bridge that night.
Yeah.
And I won't, I've even shared in front of Mr. White, because I even tried to convince Mr. White. Mr. White, that never happened. But Mr. White has heard me speak at a church, and I've been open about it, what happened that night. So
So challenging. You're so, I mean, it's open and vulnerable to the whole nation. Anyone who watches the movie, it's out there forever. So, but yeah, it's great that you've landed at that spot, and kudos to that 13-year-old for kind of being the first crack in the dam that really opened that up. So you thought that for the most part, Carlos Pratt's portrayed your character pretty well.
he did. And you know what? It's when I suppose Texas is like my second home, because I go there a lot.
Hmm.
And I always share that we all have roots
Yeah.
in Texas. Carlos Pratt's was from Woodlands
Oh, okay.
uh, High School. His dad just retired from the Woodlands as an administrator. Him and his wife. I think they're at a charter now. They're in their second career, working in a charter school in the Woodlands, Texas. Um, my mom is from San Benito, Texas, originally from there.
Okay.
The Diaz's have roots in the Rio Grande Valley, San Benito, La Sara,
Mhm.
Texas, and then Mr. White was born in Sweetwater, Texas. He was there as a toddler, and then his parents moved to California.
Okay. Wow. I've got some San Antonio roots. So yeah, it all goes back to Texas. Love that place.
Yeah, that's my hub, where I fly into San Antonio, and then I drive anywhere
Oh,
from two
okay.
to 4 hours to wherever I'm going.
Okay. Wow. So I've got to ask, were you, I don't know exactly, but I know Disney got some things right, some things they kind of ad-libbed a little bit. So that scene where the coach is driving like in the truck 12 miles an hour and he sees you just clipping off these 5-minute miles in
Mhm.
the fields, like, is that kind of how y'all, I know that it went back to middle school, but were you the number one runner for that 1987 state championship team?
I was the number one runner. I was the number
Okay.
one runner. And as far as him finding me like
Yeah.
that, he didn't find me like that. He recruited me
Right.
out of junior high,
It was in middle school,
and then
right?
right, middle school. And then
Yeah.
um but what he did is, one time he put a odometer
Mm,
a speedometer on his bike.
okay.
And he would tell us, hey, you're going 10 miles an hour. Let's see if we can get you to 13. Let's get you to 15.
Oh,
And,
that's
we
fun.
would try to close out like on a long run, I was always try to break 5 minutes, the last mile of a long run.
Oh my
And,
goodness.
some guys we would drop off, and we knew we were pretty good because, we would have guys finish off the last mile anywhere from 5:15 to
Wow.
around 5 minutes. And that was always pretty cool. It was like uh, a race within itself.
Right. That's amazing. You do that at the end of a long run. That is some
Yeah.
serious speed. Holy cow. Uh, I want to ask about something that probably never happened, the Palo Alto Invitational, since Palo Alto is about 5 hours from McFarland.
Yeah.
This might have been a bit of an ad lib, but go back to your first memories of like your first actual high school cross country meet, like completing that race, the feelings going on in your mind, if you remember anything from that moment.
If we went back to high school, I can I'm assuming in 1984 when I was a freshman, my first high school meet would have probably been a dual meet.
Okay.
Uh, yeah, because back then our league, you had dual meets to try to win league. If you won the dual meet against the team, you got 1 point. So even
Okay.
if you got second at league, if you had more points than the other team, that would kind of offset. I don't know what it was, a formula, something like that. So that
Okay.
was, I couldn't even tell you where my first high school race was at, but I'm sure it was a dual meet because we
Got
would
it.
have dual meets earlier on, and then we'd
Hmm.
have invitationals later.
Oh, got it. Okay. Do you have any of your whole high school career, any meet that stands out? Obviously, probably besides the one that everyone gets to see, the state championship. But is there any other meet that's like, oh man, this memory really rings true for
I
me?
I think my sophomore year when I won it was the South area meet, which is our area consists of everybody just in our county. But my sophomore year, I won that meet. My sophomore year, I think I broke 15 minutes for the first time
Wow,
on that course. I mean, like 14:58, something like that, 14:58, and
that's
that was the
huge.
first time ever breaking 15 minutes. And I'll kick somebody who ended up being a good friend of mine. He was my rival from the next town over. His name is Jose Medina from Wasco, California. He
Okay.
ended up going and running on in college, and we've been friends. We've been on some teams together where we competed at the Lake Tahoe in a relay, and the Baker to Vegas, which is a law enforcement relay
Oh,
in Las
cool.
Vegas.
Okay.
But
So
we've been teammates there.
you did that sub 15 as a sophomore. Is that what you said?
Yes.
Unbelievable.
That was the first time me breaking 15 minutes. Yes.
Oh my goodness. So I've got to ask, we've mentioned him a lot, but Coach White, what are some of the biggest key things, like whether it be life lessons or training protocols, kind of that you carried over into your coaching, or maybe the messages that you shared today?
Uh, you know, growing up, we always thought it was about winning races and, winning medals and trophies. But,
Hmm.
his goal for us was to be champions in life.
Hmm.
Um, and, that's, to be a champion, you have to put your priorities straight in life. And, that's putting God first,
Hmm.
your families, second. And to me, my second family was my teammates and Mr. White, who is still part of my life. And third, education. And whether it's a community college, a 4-year school, or a trade school, or going to the armed services, um, find a skill, a hustle in life
Hmm.
that's going to make you happy and provide something not just for your family but your community, to be an impact in the community. And
That's
so,
fantastic. Yeah, that's really good. I love that. And I'm sure you share that with the high schoolers and middle schoolers that you get to talk to a lot. Very good. So talk about some of the other like hard challenges you've had to overcome as a runner, maybe not necessarily at home, but like conflicts with coaches or teammates back in your high school racing days. Is there anything you remember and maybe anything you've learned from, reflected on since then?
you know what, I had somewhat of a rough time my freshman year in college. Ran for College Sequoias.
Okay.
I was a high mileage guy in high school. I ran 70 miles a week all through high school.
That's a lot.
So when
Yeah.
I went to the community college, I ended up being teammates with guys that I knew that went to schools in the surrounding area, but they weren't high mileage guys. They ran maybe, I don't know, probably 40, 45 miles, maybe 50 miles a week. And so when I got to college, I went from running 70 miles a week in high school to continue to run 70 miles in college. My teammates who ran those 45 to 50 miles in high school went to running 70 miles a week. So they saw a huge jump in their performances when they got to college. And so, and that's understandable. It
Yeah.
is. I mean, so um, I saw the progress that they made. But
Mhm.
I was still on the team. We had a pretty good team. We should have won second. We should have been second in our state in our community college. But we had one of our teammates that he kind of threw a Jose Cardenas at the state meet
Oh,
in
okay.
Fresno, California. Same kind of same area where when we won state in '87.
Mhm.
In what would have been '89, I
Yeah.
guess, when
Okay.
I was in. Um, we ended up finishing fifth. We should have been second to Taft College, but it's okay.
Yeah.
And then my second year, I ended up being ineligible. I made poor choices and disappointed Mr. White, and I had to go to summer school. And so I ended up going back a third year to finish my AA, and then going back to. I ended up running after my 3 years there at Cal State University Bakersfield,
Oh, wow.
and after that, I ended up running a year there, and then after that, I enlisted in the United States Coast Guard. So I served
Okay.
4 years, and after those 4 years, I started my career with the California Department of Corrections.
Okay. Fantastic. Yeah. Thanks for taking us through your kind of life journey there. So I've got to ask just a couple more questions before we get to your final five, like a rapid fire round. So
Sure.
I looked at the McFarland roster today, a team of about 80 runners of, both boys and girls. So the running tradition seems as vibrant as ever. How often do you get to still interact with those runners today?
So the boys team, I just was at their practice the other day with Coach Ione. So Coach Ione ran with me in high school.
Mhm.
He came through the program. Uh, we had a team coming for the second year in a row. They drove from Arizona,
Oh,
Phoenix,
wow.
Arizona. Last year they came in one small bus, kind of like in the movie McFarland USA.
Yeah.
This year they came in two short buses. They had about 20 kids, five chaperones, but they showed up. Mr. Ione gave them a clinic, and then I gave them a tour of McFarland.
Yeah.
Took them to the hills, and then they went on and headed home. So they were here for a couple of days. And then Coach Lopez, he's coached the boys before. He's the girls' coach. He was hired after I resigned in 2021, and
Okay.
after COVID, my numbers were really low
Hmm.
in 2020 and 2021. So I thought it was a good time to step away. And Coach Lopez, being a teacher at the high school, he came through the program. He's coached the boys program before.
Hmm.
Um, and he had stepped away from coaching for a while. I thought if they hire him, hopefully I kind of figured kind of the politics the way it worked that if they hire him, he
Yeah.
would revitalize the program as far as the numbers. And so
Okay.
he's done a good job. Coach Lopez has done a good job of getting the numbers back up.
It seems like it. Yeah, very good. A couple of my runners wanted me to ask these two questions to you. So, were
Sure.
there any other big plot points of the movie that Disney had to creatively tweak for the sake of Hollywood? I know we said the ones about Coach White already and kind of how he came to McFarland, but were there any others that you usually tell people like, this was a little bit ad libbed here?
Uh, I don't know about Well, like the almond, running over the covered almonds. Those are
Hmm.
almonds that they show the actors running over, but really they were uh, covered dirt mounts.
Oh, okay.
Because they couldn't have created a scene. They wouldn't have allowed them to run over the actual almonds. And it is harvest season. Harvest season finished a while ago, but there's thousands right now of covered almonds right now. I live on Garzoli, and just north of town here, there's an almond processing plant. They're being fumigated. They're waiting their turn to be processed.
Okay.
Um, where they take off the hard and the soft the hard shell and the soft shell once they dry up
Mhm.
after they're fumigated. And so our busiest time for tourists, we have people from all over the world come by, a lot of local people as well, but um, Thanksgiving weekend. So we have teams driving down Highway 99 to get to Fresno for the state
Oh,
championship. So
yeah.
Thanksgiving's on Thursday. Friday, those teams are passing through, and they're stopping in McFarland all day long.
That's amazing.
They're having picnics, and so I give them tours if they're available and they have the time. I'll give them a tour, and we end up out there. And one time, there was one particular team. I told one of the boys, "Hey, run to the top of that hill, and I'll take your picture." And so he did. When he ran up, he punched holes in the plastic and exposed the almonds. And the
Oh
coach
my
looks
God.
at him. Do you see what you just did?
Yeah.
Now we are responsible for that. And I told the coach, Coach, I told him to run to the top and I'd take his picture. Oh, it's on you then, coach.
Oh my God.
But they came out right away and they fixed it. It was okay. And then I was sharing
Okay.
that same story with a local farmer where they filmed in his field.
Hmm.
And Mr. Davis says, you know what, Thomas? They didn't run over the almonds. They couldn't do that. So they brought in an excavator, did like 3 or 4 mounds of dirt, covered it with
Okay.
plastic.
Yeah.
And so 3 or 4 hills is dirt, and the rest beyond that is actually the almonds,
Those are
covered
the
almonds.
almonds. Okay. That's interesting. That's cool. And then it sounds like I already know the answer to this one, but for most of the runners that were still on your 1987 team, it sounds like you still keep in contact with some of your old teammates from the movie.
Yeah, I do. We try to. I go out and speak sometimes with some of the guys like Johnny Samaniego,
Hmm.
two of the Diaz brothers, David and Danny.
Hmm. Okay.
Mr. White, Mr. White speaking with us in Kingsburg here in November 28th. There's 4 of us there
Okay.
speaking.
How old is Mr. White now?
He's 82. Mrs. White's 82. Um, they've been married 62 years now.
Oh my gosh. You still talk to him on a weekly basis, would you say?
I just talked to him last week, and I'm going camping here in a little bit. Like I said, I probably
Okay.
try to go visit them before I head out of town.
Fantastic. That's great to hear. So here are your final 5 questions, and these are just you can answer them in a word or a sentence, but some non-movie related. But your first
Okay.
one is what are some of your favorite hobbies or pastimes that you've picked up since the movies?
Hiking.
Hiking. Okay. Probably a lot of beautiful hiking out there in California. What is your favorite childhood memory, non-movie related?
Uh, just being with my family when we were with my uncles and aunts when they'd come down and no hotel. They would just I really crash out in the garage or all the extra rooms in our house.
That sounds like a great time. Very good. Going back to running, then, what is your proudest running accomplishment?
Going on to coach.
Oh, there you go. That's good. The give back moment.
Yeah.
Okay. In the last 5 years, what new belief, behavior, or habit has improved your life?
Mm, Probably the ability to share my
Hmm.
personal struggles and challenges in life. Um, I've spoken in front of like 5,000 people, and
Wow.
even though sometimes I get emotional and I share,
Uh-huh.
really it's therapy for me.
Yeah.
Um, and I've had people come up to me and just like that 13-year-old kid in that
Hmm.
eighth grade class, seventh and eighth grade class. Um, every time I share, I have people come up to me and say, that's my story, Mr. Valles or
Wow.
Thomas, and I think I'm going to keep doing it as long as people keep asking me to share. I'll keep doing it.
That's so powerful. And people can see how true you're being, how honest. And I think they really latch onto that. So thank you for doing that. Last one of your your final 5 here. If you had the attention of the world for 3 minutes or 2 minutes, whatever, what would you say?
Uh, be kind, guys. Don't take things for granted in life. Especially if those, especially the young kids. You never know what you're going to see in life and where you're ever going to be able to see it again. Uh, Mr. White, we got to watch the Olympic torch run through Eugene, Oregon in 1984 when he took me to go run when I graduated eighth grade off a promise that if I excelled in the sport, he would take me to run in Eugene, Oregon. And he fulfilled that promise. We got to watch the Olympic torch on the way to in 84 on the way to Los Angeles. And it's one of those things I took for granted for years. I think whenever the Rio Olympics were at in Rio de Janeiro,
Hmm.
I kind of out bursted out loud watching when the Olympic torch came into the stadium there. And I said, "Oh, I remember watching the Olympic torch run through Eugene, Oregon on the way to Los Angeles." And I looked over at my kids that were very young and they were competing for me already. And they go, "Dad, you got to see the Olympic torch. How come you've never shared that with us?" And I realized that I don't know how old I was. I was probably in my 40s. I realized I'd taken it for granted. I took it
Yeah,
for granted.
that's
Yeah.
a big
And
deal.
so,
Wow. Okay, that's very good. I want to go back to something you said earlier in the podcast. It just dawned on me, but you know how you were saying like running gave you all these new experiences and opportunities? That scene when Mr. White took you guys all to the beach, was that the first time that you had ever seen the beach? Did that trip really happen, or was it like not the 1987 season? Wasn't it a couple years prior?
it was my first time being at the beach was when I ran for Mr. White in eighth grade. He
Okay.
found an invitational in Santa Maria, California. So
Mm,
that's not directly on the beach, but it is the Central Coast. And
okay.
so in this high school meet, it was called the Allen Hancock Invitational. So they
Mm,
had a community college race, they had a high school race, but they started off the day with a junior high race, which I ran and I won. And
oh,
after
wow.
that meet, after the high school kids ran, we went to the beach. And for that was my first time ever going to the beach. And so that was pretty cool. We still have kids like that that don't get the opportunity to take a trip like that. And we're only like maybe a little over like 2.5
Yeah.
hours away.
Right. Wow. That is pretty cool. I love it. So, since you have the eyes of the running world on you frequently, are there any causes that you're passionate about or a part of that you'd like our listeners to check out?
Uh one more time again. I'm sorry.
Yeah, just like if there's any causes or like I know that you're raising funds for things sometimes, like when you're running
Okay.
the New York City Marathon. Is there anything that you'd like? Now, I will add as a little side note, you're wearing this for those who are watching the YouTube video, this beautiful McFarland USA T-shirt. Like, are there any causes or anything that you know that you're passionate about that we could support?
Uh, you know what? I'll just let you know that this shirt is available. Message me on Messenger or Facebook, or I'm on Instagram, just like Thomas Valles, common spelling.
Hmm.
Um, they are available. I have movie posters, um, but it helps me be able to travel and speak and share my story. No, just not my story, McFarland USA story.
Yeah.
Um, and this time around, I was sharing with you earlier, leagues, regionals,
Oh yeah.
teams have already finished state. So, I've done shout outs all week for the last 2 weeks because different states finish at different times. California is last week of November, Thanksgiving weekend. So this weekend is Friday and Saturday. Friday tomorrow, Saturday, UIL state meet in Round Rock, Texas. So I've had teams that I've known for years and I visit their schools. So good luck to them. Good luck to the Cougars from Georgia that will
Yeah,
be traveling to Louisville, Kentucky,
that's
your
right.
team to nationals, youth nationals in Kentucky. So I want to wish you the best of luck, guys.
Thank you
God
so
bless.
much. Appreciate that. That is amazing. So, again, thank you so much for spending some quality time with me today, shedding some light on the story behind the story of McFarland. I guarantee that you're going to have hundreds of fans just from my little circle of the running world near Atlanta who continue to be inspired by the story of McFarland USA. And thank you for everything you do, continue to do for the sport of cross country. As the inspiration from Mr. Valles, from Thomas, has lit us all up today, go be the light for someone else and go be the light for yourself. Until next week.
Hey, thank you,
Thank
Coach
you
Paul, and
so much.
keep doing what you're doing.
That was awesome. I appreciate it. And yeah, thank you. And hope I know this is a busy time of year for you. Goodness, getting all this fit in. I really appreciate you. I'll send this to you just like as a little link. If you want to throw it out there, you can. But if
Hey,
not,
thank you.
not obligated, but appreciate you again.
No, appreciate you, sir.
All right. Bye bye.
Bye bye.